What's happening, rugby fans? I hope that you are doing well. Welcome to Rugger United, the show where you and I get to talk about all those rugby stories that you have been seeing on your timeline. As always, I'm not alone. I'm joined by the man who absolutely loves his rugby. His name is Khotso Sello, one of the best sporting journalists in this country. Khotso, my brother, how are you doing today?
Good, how are you, Eric?
I'm doing well, man. We saw what the Springboks did at Loftus. I wouldn't say destroying Ireland, but confidently beating Ireland with a solid scoreline of 20 to 27 points, the way of the Springboks. Looking at that scoreline, and specifically the last, let's say, 15 minutes in the game, would you say that Rassie was a little bit nervous towards the end there? Because to me, as a rugby supporter, as a Springbok rugby supporter, hey, my boy, I was sweating at the end there. When I saw Ireland scoring those last two tries, I was like, hey, the boys better be careful, because I was nervous about what happened to the Bulls. Because they lost to the Glasgow Warriors in the same way. And I was like, hey, the same might happen to the Springboks, but the boys held on.
They held on, a bit of a nervy finish there at the end, but also just the courage from the Springboks to be able to play that expansive game. Tony Brown just, stamping his authority. I thought we'll see subtle variations. There was a lot of variation. I mean, as early as the 3rd minute when we scored that try, how the Springboks were able to create space and run around Ireland to score that opening try for Curtly Arons. So we saw our loose forwards being, deployed on those wider channels to create extra men and to create the extra width. And it's something that the All Blacks were struggling to do against Ireland when Ireland visited New Zealand a couple of years ago. So it just shows that South Africa were able to run around and not necessarily had to go through them using hammer blows and all of that. And I think they caught me by surprise, but more than anything, I think the Irish were also caught a little bit napping. They didn't expect the Springboks to come out all guns blazing, ball in hand. I think about 160 plus passes in that match, almost double what we usually average in a normal game. So just the bravity from the team to be able to come out and express themselves the way they did, and a good win. And there will be a few hiccups along the way. I remember when the Springboks first played under Rassie Erasmus and Jacques Nienaber back in 2018. We hosted England. That's the first match that Siya Kolisi captained the Springboks at Ellis Park. And I think in the first 18 minutes, we were 21-0 down. And we were trying that new rush defense. And sometimes Apue Kyanki didn't know when to come up or stay back. And, it left a lot of holes. A lot of pundits had so many questions about this rush defense that it's not going to work. And over time, we built this watertight defense that eventually went on to go win us the 2019 Rugby World Cup and the 2023 Rugby World Cup. And, Rassie has mentioned that we are now building for the next Rugby World Cup. And there will definitely be teething problems, but things that are fixable. There are fixables, so I don't think people should be really worried about, some of the mistakes that happened in that game here and there, and saying the new game plan, hey, we've had this formula that
Andre Pollard missing.
And we've had 4 years of a solid game plan, and why do we change? Why do we need to expand, to be expansive? If you are number one, people are coming for you. The rules of rugby are also changing, nullifying the scrum, nullifying the rolling mauls, which means, you need to be creative in how you create the space. And the fact that now the Springboks have added more tools to their toolbox, and now can either hit you up front, out wide, or through the middle. It's options that you want to have. So I think we should be happy with the first outing, and hopefully the Springboks can build more onto the first win.
Most certainly. Let's switch the mindset, because you've spoken about the Springboks now. I want to get into the mind of the Irish coach, Andy Farrell. Where is he at the moment? Because, for the last 8 years, things were looking good for the Irish. This was our first victory since 2016. But now it seems that the Springboks have almost found a way to beat the Irish, like you said. Going into the next game that will be played in Durban, what should they be doing differently? And where are the gaps that they can maybe isolate in the Springbok camp?
I think Ireland were really smart when it came to the set pieces. They knew South Africa would want to attack them at the set piece. We were successful in the lineouts, but not so successful when it came to scrum time, because they had some wheeling and dealing, and we got penalized for maybe punching in too early, or pushing before time, and maybe they didn't take the hit, and all sorts of gamesmanship that was happening there. And I think South Africa will be a little bit wiser coming into Durban, and will certainly target that. So I think Ireland certainly has a very good scrum. We've seen them scrum at the World Cup against New Zealand and against us, so they'll probably have a solid scrum. I think they made it very difficult for us at the breakdown. And they need to be street smart. They don't churn out nearly half the number of professional rugby players that we churn out in South Africa. And when you go pound for pound, we probably have more depth in every position. So it means every player in Irish rugby needs to be a little bit smarter. And I think they invest a lot in making sure that their players, read more, understand how to manipulate certain situations, what are the shortcuts on the field, how to disrupt certain things in certain way and still be within the letters of the law. So I think they were very smart in terms of slowing down our possession, because if we had that quick ball that we were trying to generate, I think it would have been a long day at the office for Ireland. And they were really quick to pounce on their counter-attack. But I think South Africa will be a little bit street smart when it comes to those collision zones, particularly the breakdown. And it will be a little bit tough. But, Ireland is what you see is what you get. They play that running rugby where the continuity is a thing. And I think we starved them of possession in the opening quarter of the match, which meant it was very difficult for them to get their momentum going and getting their game plan going. We started seeing bits and pieces of it towards the end when we made all those substitutions and they were able to kind of, put together 3 or 4 or 5, 6 phases together. Then
they were good with the phases.
They were very good with their phases. And once they start doing that, you are playing into their hands. So I think they'll be trying to get as much ball as possible. I don't see them kicking a lot in Durban, because chances are they know that South Africa will run it back. But what if it's a bluff? What if we're going to play the kicking game? So it's all mind games at the moment. But I think Ireland, if they really, really want to level the series and square things off, I think their best bet is to stick with their running rugby, with their pods. I think
more of the same.
Yeah, more of the same. And I don't think they'll change much. But just making sure that there's more intensity and making sure that they keep the ball and not kick it away.
Most certainly. We have to talk about something that I'm sure every rugby fan across the world has been talking about. We know Rassie Erasmus. We know the tricks that he and Jacques Nienaber have been using building up to the Rugby World Cup. We have to talk about that bench, right? The man from Scotland, Matt Williams, criticized Rassie Erasmus and the way in which he positions the bomb squad. We know him very well for that 6-2 or 7-1 split. Some would say it's against the integrity of the game. Some would say it shouldn't be happening. Rassie is discriminating against backline players. Your thoughts on the matter? Because to me, when I look at it, Rassie has just found a way to cheat the system. And whether he's bringing on the forwards one by one, or he's actually putting on the whole pack, what's the problem? Or is it just people trying to chip at Rassie because he's doing well?
I think people always have something to say if you're winning. I think if you look at the great All Black legendary teams of the late 90s and early 2000s, they used to put away sides in the last 10 minutes of the match. And they had, they were one of the fittest teams that were ever coached. And they had props that almost looked like backs and they could all, they were running everybody off their feet. And that was their thing. So do we call that generation of All Blacks cheats? Because they were discriminating against the forwards because rugby is for all shapes and sizes? Or do we say they found a way to maximize the talent that they have and use it still within the letter of the law? And if you look at it, I mean, even on Saturday, Ireland went for a 6-2 split bench. So why is South Africa the cheats if Ireland also went for a 6-2 split.
We just use it better.
And we just use it better. So when New Zealand were going for a backline heavy bench, nobody had issues. So the problems that I have is that when South Africa starts winning, then everybody starts whinging. And if you have problem with the law, then take it up with World Rugby. Don't take it up with Rassie.
Exactly.
He doesn't write the rules.
Exactly.
And he's just using every tool available to him to make sure that his team can come out with a W on the other side of a performance. So I don't think these are the kind of things that we need to really entertain as South Africans. Everybody has sour grapes. I don't know when last Scotland won something, tangible or a threat in World Rugby. Maybe they should be focusing their energies on maybe producing bigger and better forwards, feed them, some
Instead
South
of stealing
African
our
meat.
players.
Yeah, man, come import some meat there, Karoo lamb at very good prices.
Biltong droewors.
Droewors, the works. We'll let you know what to feed them. But I just think it's very unprofessional. He did it last year. At the World Cup, and he continues with it, and it's getting really nasty now. It's really distasteful.
100%. Let's move over to Kurtley Orense. This segment we call the rule book, an opportunity for you and I at home to understand the rules of the game a little bit better.
Yeah.
So we spoke about it earlier. Towards the latter part of the game, things got a little bit nerve-wracking for the Springboks. Round about 74 minutes on the clock, Kurtley Orense receives a yellow card, which means that for the last 6 minutes of the game, the Boks have to play with 14 players, right? Take me through exactly what happened there, because according to what we saw, is the Boks were defending. They were deep into their 22, and the ref played advantage. And it seemed like there were continuous infringements during that phase of play, right? What happened there with Kurtley Orense, and why did he get the yellow card?
So what tends to happen, particularly with what the Boks use, which is a rush defense, is that timing is everything. So as soon as the scrummy gets the ball out, then we have to rush up, and usually the wing is the one that rushes up almost like a wiper, so that cuts off the options of the guy on the inside passing to the guys on the outside and enforces them back inside, which is usually where the heavy traffic is, where your forwards are, and they can either push you back or try and go for a counter ruck, and it just keeps the attack honest and the defense consistently going forward. So what happens is sometimes out of disparity, when the team is continuously attacking, you want to get out, and sometimes you jump the gun. And I think within that period of play, Kurtley was caught offside, I think twice or thrice, in two different movements, and then the referee found it to be a professional foul. And that is equivalent to a yellow card, and infringements, particularly repeated infringements in the 22, which is called the red zone, usually result in either a penalty try or a yellow card.
A yellow card. You spoke about an offside. So we are familiar with an offside in football. That's the very common one. We don't need an explanation for that one. But explain to me, what is an offside in rugby? Because you referred to it there, because that's basically what led to Kurtley's yellow card, is that he was offside a few times.
So in rugby, the offside line comes in different facets of play. So from your first phase, so your first phases is usually your line out or your scrum, right? The offside line is guided by the last man's feet from where the ball is. So if there's a scrum, your number 8, that's the offside line.
So you must be behind.
You must be behind the number 8. So that becomes the offside line. And then if we move from that scrum, and there's a collision, and in that collision it results in a ruck. In that ruck, the last man's feet becomes the offside line.
Okay.
So wherever the last man's feet, whether it's a ruck, a scrum, or a line out. That's why even in a line out, you have the guy right at the back with the ball.
Yes.
Yeah, and if there's guys coming around the side, the ref will tell you to move back to go join from the back because now you're
basically
trading
offside.
on an offside position. So the last man's feet, always check where the ball is. The last man's feet at where the ball is the offside line.
Okay, and it's continuously moving throughout the game.
Throughout the game.
All right, fantastic. In terms of the big battle, round number 2, Springboks taking on Ireland in Durban. Your prediction? What are we expecting?
Sure, I'm predicting a much slower game. It's down in the coast. The ball doesn't travel as far. The air there is a bit thick and also a bit humid, so the ball gets a little bit sticky. So it's a bit more risky if you're playing fast running rugby. So I think the Boks will be slightly more conservative, keep it more close, more direct. So expect Damien Dalinda and Jesse Creel to run straight at their opposite numbers, and they'll keep it very simple. And perhaps once we start piling up the scoreboard pressure, then we'll have the leverage to run it out wide. But also must say that I enjoyed watching Sia Kolisi attack in those wider channels.
He had a few big tackles.
I mean, running over a few Irish tacklers and defenders, and just dispelling the myth that he's a little bit overweight and had too much croissants, and also seeing Peter Steph de Foy in full gallop on the wide trenches. I mean, He's always had to be this guy who's making 50 plus tackles for the Springboks and putting his body and limbs on the line for the country. And then it's quite nice for him to stretch his long limbs a little bit and have some fun with ball in hand and carry it with one hand, one-handed passes. So it was actually quite nice to see the guys have a bit more freedom in this new game plan. But I'm sure that this week will be a little bit more different. But I think the Boks will run away with it.
Scoreline?
31-15.
31-15. Double the points. And I have to put you on the spot. Is Andre Pollard going to miss this weekend? I mean, Andre is the guy who never misses.
He never misses.
And when he misses, everyone is like, wait, is everything okay?
In front of the sticks, But also, I saw something interesting. I don't know if I was the only one who picked it up. Every time Andre Pollard went for a kick, the Irish number 1, Porter, did like this weird walk in front of Andre's eye line as soon as Andre approached the kicking tee. Go look at it. Go watch the match.
Khotso team.
Watch what Porter does. And it's clever.
Are you saying that Porter was distracting him slightly?
Because when Andre scored his first kick of the match, Porter was off for a HIA, head assessment injury.
All right.
I'm just saying.
Khotso is throwing a spanner in the works, basically saying that in Durban, we must be watching out for Porter because he might be distracting Andre Pollard. Because for me, I was shocked. I'm like, why is Andre missing?
No, look, I don't think you should be missing from that range at that level, even if there is distraction or people making noises. I mean, you've been a professional for how many years now? But I'm just saying, it was something very interesting. And he'll stand still for a while, but as soon as Andre starts approaching, then he does something that almost like puts him off. But if it is 100% to him, I think at this level, we even saw it at the Rugby World Cup that the margins
chasing that one down.
The margins are so fine, so every little trick in the book is done. You saw even in the scrums how they edged close. It was Porter again in the scrums, making sure that the Springboks don't get the hit that they want. We only started getting penalties when the bomb squad came on. So I think these are some of the little things that we need to look out for come Saturday. I'm sure Rassi and the team had picked up on it, and I'm sure we can rectify it. Nothing to be worried about.
Khotso, my brother, you just pointed out a few things that I didn't see. Maybe, I wasn't as attentive as you were, but we appreciate your eyes, sir, and we appreciate your time. We'll definitely be watching Porter. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
As always, we would like to hear from you. The Springboks will be taking on Ireland in the second battle that will be played in Durban. It will be another big one. Rassie Erasmus has named the most experienced Springbok squad for this battle, so it should be a good one. I'd like to hear from you. What do you think the final score will be down in Durban? As always, thank you so much for joining Rugger United, and we'll catch you again next week.
I saw a cherry, and it was